Effects of population on economy. The effects of population on economy is a hotly debated topic in economics. Some economists argue that the impact of people on the economy is negative because more people will use up resources, like food, energy, and land. Other economists believe that the effect of population on the economy is positive because more people means more consumers and entrepreneurs who can create jobs and spur economic growth. Effects of population on economy in developing world. The population of developing countries is steadily on the rise. Their economic growth relies heavily upon these great swathes of people for labor, but this dependence creates an imbalance in their workforce and economy as they are more prone to unemployment because a rising population also means new workers are entering the market each year with only so many jobs available. In order to keep up with progress economically without creating chaos within society's workforce, governments should encourage citizens through education or financial incentives such as tax breaks that promote activities other than working full-time, which can lead to more stable employment opportunities across all industries by slowly shifting away from one industry-based economy into something far less volatile while still maintaining its viability in today's world markets. Effects of population on economy in the developed world. Developed countries face a variety of challenges. One such challenge is population growth, which has an impact on their economies in many ways, some positive and some negative. Population increases can have both optimistic or pessimistic effects depending on how it's handled by those living there. In Japan, where people are starting to shrink due to below replacement fertility rates, less than 2 children per woman, they are beginning workforce shortages as well as difficulty finding marriage partners for themselves because another looming problem with low birth rates aside from shrinking populations would be that everyone eventually marries someone else who shares their age group rather than new blood entering into society at all ages like before when more couples were having babies. The population in developed countries has had an enormous effect on the economy of these nations. The changes made to our economies are mainly dependent on how many people live there and what they do for a living. With fuller employment, more jobs will be available, which means that not only can we provide better services but at lower prices as well. Effects of overpopulation on economy. The overpopulation problem is not just a social issue but also an economic one. With more people occupying the same space, we are running out of resources, and there will be fewer things to go around for everyone, which means that many people won't have enough money or other valuable assets to provide themselves with necessities like food and shelter. We've all heard about how population growth can affect our environment. It's no surprise when you consider how much energy goes into keeping so many humans warm in winter months while giving them access to clean water and healthy food year-round. But what does this mean economically? Well, if we're using up everything faster than nature can replenish it, then eventually, the economy will suffer because governments might run out of resources. Overpopulation is seen as a significant threat to the world economy. It's been predicted that by 2050, 2/3 of our planet will be living in urban areas and without sufficient housing, while at the same time, more than half of humanity will live on less than $2 per day. This disparity between rich and poor could lead to violent conflict or even starvation due to lack of access to resources for food production. Effects of population on economy. Effects of population decline on economy. The rise in unemployment and subsequent economic instability that ensues from population decline has the potential to create an entire generation of young people who never recover. In order for our country's economy to prosper, it is imperative that we do something about the declining birth rates among Americans today. As a result, there are fewer workers entering into employment markets than retirees leaving them, which leads not only to higher rates of unemployment but also more complicated interactions with trade balances because fewer citizens mean lower demand, and therefore exports, as well as greater vulnerability on international marketplaces when imports outpace domestic production due to their comparative affordability relative to American goods/services sold abroad. The population decline has led many economists to believe there may be a recession in 2050 unless changes are made quickly. It's predicted we will need 10 million more laborers every year so that companies can operate at their capacity. Effects of population on currency. The best way to measure the value of a country's money is by looking at how it impacts its population. If there are more people, then goods and services have increased in price due to demand from many consumers, whereas if fewer people exist, prices will drop because supply increases without any competition for those resources on the market. The most accurate representation of currency comes down to what effect it has on populations. When you're dealing with an increase in citizens who all want different things and need their needs met quickly, or else they'll go elsewhere where demands can be satisfied quicker, which means less profit, pricing goes up, which leaves each person poorer than before. So does inflation, your dollar won't buy as much anymore. Conversely, when there are few. In the modern world, population and currency are intricately linked. Countries with larger populations tend to have more money in circulation because there is a higher demand for products from those countries. For example, if you live in India, your government has over 1 billion people, so naturally, it will need plenty of rice, which would result in high prices, or wages, for farmers who grow these crops because they can't keep up with supply demands by themselves. Effects of population on jobs. The populous metropolis is in the midst of a job crisis, as there are now 1.2 million jobs available for an estimated 2.7 unemployed people. Source. The main reasons behind this significant issue revolve around population growth and shrinking workforce due to retirement or personal choice not to be working. While many experts may disagree on how exactly we can fix our current predicament, one thing that has been agreed upon by both sides so far is education. It will have lasting effects if done well right from childhood onward. The population of the U.S. has grown dramatically in recent years, and this is affecting how many jobs are available. The increasing population of America over the last few decades has had a significant effect on employment rates for citizens. While there were only 9 million people living here when our country was founded back in 1776, we now have more than 300 million Americans who need to work as well. It's not just an increase that means more hands on deck either. More people also mean greater competition with other workers trying to fill those positions too. Effects of population on farmers. As the population increases, farmers are put in a difficult position. With less land to farm on and more mouths to feed, the amount of food available per person decreases. Population growth brings new challenges for agriculture producers who face shrinking farmland as well as increased competition from other agricultural countries with lower-priced crops. It is no secret that around the world, populations are expanding. This comes with many benefits, such as a more vibrant economy and increased income for citizens, but it also has some drawbacks. One of these adverse effects on population growth includes an increasing number of people who choose to live in rural areas where resources are scarce, which can lead to overcrowded conditions and limited agricultural production because there isn't enough land available or viable irrigation systems in place, and thus less food. The other effect is decreased productivity from workers due to overwork, while undernourished only further exacerbates this problem by leading them into poverty cycles. They're unable to afford anything beyond their basic necessities like education, healthcare, etc., so not much changes until something drastic happens. How does China's population affect the world economy? The old systems are dying, and the new ones are not yet fully formed. China's vast population has changed our idea about economic success forever by demonstrating that it can provide for its people to an unprecedented degree while still maintaining their quality of life. We're witnessing what may be called the Chinese model, where the one-party rule does away with many obstacles impeding growth in specific sectors, which inevitably benefits everyone involved from top down as well as bottom up simultaneously through inclusive development policies within each industry. This also includes fostering innovation domestically via increased competition among local firms, so they remain globally competitive on tech frontiers like green technology or artificial intelligence. These same companies then have access to more. As the population of China continues to grow, its economy will continue to expand. This is because more people means more production and consumption takes place in order for everyone's needs to be met. How does India's population affect the world economy? India is a large country with many people. If they all had access to the same opportunities and resources as America, there's no telling how much of an impact this would have on India's economy or world economies in general. India's population affects the world economy in many ways. For example, India is not only one of the most populous countries on earth but also has a large youth demographic that will soon be entering into its prime working years and thus become an increasingly important part of our global workforce.